Alright guys, I'm gonna make another quick little video showing some tab replacement. So bear with me, I've got junk laying everywhere. I've been working on doing motor covers, wherever they're at. Yeah, new motor covers and all sorts of 3D printed stuff. So today what I'm working on is I got a pretty decent orange crane and the front tabs broke. So what I like to do is I keep a lot of junk bodies and things like that. I think this was off of a water demon that was messed up. And anyway, I've trimmed off that section and it's the same color. So to me, this is the most logical way to replace an original tab and make it look right. So what I'm going to do for strength is I'm going to trim out this old one. So I'm going to go down in here beside this. You got to be careful because you're using sharp objects, obviously. So I go down in here and I separate the plastic with a real good sharp X-Acto knife. And then I do the same on the top of it. I know it's hard to see this on the video while I'm working, but you get the basic idea. So if you just go in here and you trim it out, as you see, it just popped out of there. Like I said, just be prepared because once you trim that plastic, it just snaps. So now that the old's out of the way, let me find that piece. That's the piece that was there. So what we're basically doing is we're going to put this tab back in its place, and these tabs have a rounded edge that goes inward that helps snap it down on there. So what we need to do is trim this to fit into the same location so we can just glue it right back in. Essentially that's what we're looking at. So I scribed a little line on here. Still not X-Acto. So what I'm going to do is try to get me a nice straight scribed line and just start working all the way through it. It's pretty close. Got a little bit off here. I'm going to trim it up one more time. It's best to just take a little at a time and not get carried away. If you cut too much off, then you got to start over and find another tab. You can do this with styrene plastics. There are guys that do that. Nothing wrong with that way either. I just prefer to do it my way, like most people. So now that I've got my piece pretty much cut to the size, I'm going to clean this up a little bit more so that this will fit up inside the notched out area. This will be stronger than just gluing it, just butting it up on there. So hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. It's hard to do this when you're recording with your phone. Hopefully the music's not too loud. If it's too loud, you're too old. Alright, baby steps here. One little section at a time. Like I said, if you take too much off, then you got to start over. So it's best to just go a little bit at a time. Use good common sense. And just trim out just a smidgen at a time. I don't know what a smidgen is, but apparently it's very small. Alright, looks like we're getting pretty close. So let's take a look at what the original looked like when it was in there. I think it was that way. The best thing to do is just overlap it here. It's hard to show this on the video, but This is the original piece. That's the new piece. So as you can see, the top's gone off of that one. And I do have an extra body here for parts. And it looks like we're getting pretty close. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our chassis. We're going to pop our tab on here. Like that. And then we're going to test fit. See how it looks. One thing I've noticed about these is they kind of stick up in the front. I thought about actually lowering that a little. So when they're on a chassis, even with the original tab, it sticks up in the front. To me, it seems like it should be down more like that. And since it's mine and I can do what I want, I think I will trim out just a little bit more. And that's only going to make it a little more solid anyway. So let's shave off a little at a time here. Like I said, everything you do when you're working with plastics, go slow. Use a X-Acto knife and just cut a little at a time. And then trial fit, and then try some more. And it'll get better and better, and you'll get better at cutting it. It's getting a lot closer. I think I'm going to take a little off the tab now. On these Road Kings, I've noticed the way the tabs go on there, they put this tab in a bind. I think that's why these are commonly broke. This is really rounded, and it's small when you first start putting it on there, but that's pretty tight. So I can see why we always have issues with these cranes. I think they were on there too tight, in my opinion. So I'm scribing another line and I'm trimming down my piece here. I always keep my scraps because sometimes if you have to fill in a hole or something like that, I think most of the collectors have a tendency of pack ratting, I guess you could say. Alright, I'm going to test fit it again. I know these videos aren't the best because I'm not recording them and editing them or anything like that. I'm just turning the phone on and letting you see, mistakes and all. So hopefully you get something out of this. It's looking better. I think that's fairly level looking now. I think I'm going to leave it. So what I need to do now is probably go ahead and put a little plastic weld on there. And it's pretty close. Might need to trim just a little off of this side right here. See if that fits any better. Oh yeah, now that's better. All right, just laying it on there. Here's what we're dealing with. Hopefully you can see that. I'm going to glue around that, and that's going to be strong. Hopefully. Another thing I need to do is use the correct chassis. This is not even the chassis for that one. It's the same kind, but let's just go for accuracy here. And alright, what I normally do is I use Plastruck Plasti Weld. My buddy Casey Riley got me hooked up on this stuff. He does some cool customs and stuff too, and repairs and things like that, as do a lot of guys on the group. One little tip with this stuff, and I mention it every time I do a video. When you put the lid back on, thread it down. I don't know how many times I thought I just set that lid back on there and let it sit there, and I knock it over and spill it all over my work area. So I find that it's best to just put the lid back on. So what I've done here is I've started with just a little bit of the glue, and of course it's going to be dry by the time I get it on there, but what I'm doing is I'm pre-soaking that plastic Now I gotta find my little screw here. I'm gonna screw the body back down. So that it's good and straight and held in place. Don't go too tight, you will break that. These things aren't the strongest. Alright, it looks like the tab is fairly straight. Once you get this into position, you want to make sure the body looks straight on the chassis. It seems to. And you want to make sure that your tab aligns with the front of the vehicle. And originally, it stuck out a little in the front there, so we're going to go back with the same spacings. Now, once you have it where you want it, you want to be sure not to get glue on your chassis, because obviously it will glue your body to the chassis, and you don't want to do that. You want to glue just the tab. So we're going to take a little plastruk and we're going to go around the seam. This actually melts the plastic. Some guys use acetone and things like that. Nothing wrong with either way. I just keep it simple for the smells and the chemicals and things like that. I prefer just to stick with the acetone myself, but I wouldn't knock a guy, whatever he wants to use. So what I'm going to do now is I'm kind of judging my distance here on each side above the wheel to make sure that it is level. And it does appear to be. So all we got now is just to get the plastruk to start to dry. I need to, once this stuff dries, it's hard to get it to budge. I mean, it welds, basically. Best way I can put it. So now that I've got my first little piece of weld, I'm going to pop this back off. And the way I found the best way on these is to tilt them forward. And of course the glue's not all the way dry yet, but I want to try to get that off of there if I can. So I'm going to take this and just kind of push it slowly on each side until it's off of there. If it'll come off, if not, I'll have to re-glue it. Yeah, I'm going to have to re-glue it, I think. The way these are made, yeah, there they go. It kind of tilts upward. So what I want to do is make sure that the tab is good and straight before it's completely dry, because wherever it dries, that's where you're stuck with it. So it looks pretty decent. So what I'm going to do is, while it's off of the chassis, set that out of the way, I'm going to go around on the inside now. And this stuff seeps down into that plastic and it melts both pieces back together. And that's what you want for the strength. And typically you want to let this stuff set up a while. It's not a super glue, so it doesn't instantly glue it back together. But if you can let it set up for a few hours, that usually gets it where it'll work again. Sometimes I prefer to go a little bit longer than that. It's really, you just have to test it. If you see it moving, then you know obviously it's not completely cured. And one thing you can do is sometimes you can take some of these pieces, if you've got a gap or anything, and you can fill the gaps in. And that will make it stronger and look better. So I'm going to put one more coat around this and I'm going to let it set. And I'm going to basically shut this video down because you've seen what you needed to see. Now the nice thing about this too, once you're done gluing that on, and you can take your bumper and put it back on there. But sometimes, depending on the vehicle, you can take that bumper and you can actually glue your tab to the back of it where you can't see any of it. And once you do that, it's pretty much unitized the bumper to the chassis. So hopefully these videos help some of the new guys that come in, or maybe someone who's not even thought about using an old tab. And again, like I said earlier, you can make these tabs out of styrene. Some guys have mentioned having me 3D print some tabs for them, and the only problem with that is I don't know how well the filament that I'm using will glue to that original plastic. The styrene seems to be the way to go if you're going to make one. Just make it out of styrene. And there's other guys that do it on the groups. You could always ask them what thickness they're using and things like that. So anyway, as I mentioned, once the bumper's back on, as you can see, the bumper sits right up against that tab and kind of surrounds it. You can't even see it anymore once that's on there. So that's the cool part. So what you might do is, where the bumper's notched out, just make sure your glue doesn't get on the front, but put you a little dab of glue on there on the inside, and then slip it back in its spot, and you will actually glue all of that together and make it one piece, and it'll be a little stronger than just your plastic weld. So I put a little plastic weld. I'm getting low on this stuff. I might have to order some more. But anyway, just put a little plastic weld on the inside. Sometimes I'll blow on it. It seems to cure a little faster that way. It's pretty thin, so it's probably primarily acetone when you get down to it, but the smell doesn't seem to be as strong. And if you're using it again inside, you may not want to get high. If you do, that's your business. But if you're not planning on getting high, you may want to use a well-ventilated area for one. So I'm going to hold this up close so you can see the finished results. Hopefully you could see most of that on the video. See if I can get it to zoom in a little better here. There we go. Alright, so once you replace your tab, it's all glued in. Just set it somewhere and let it cure. And once it's good and dry, you'll be able to put it back into service. Hope this helps you guys out. Till next time, Stomper on.